Next talk is Decoding StyleX, Meta's cutting-edge styling system. It is by Supriya, who is a computer science graduate specializing in full stack development. She's currently working at Cisco.
I hope everyone's having a great time here at React India. I am based out of in Bangalore and it's been gloomy the whole day today. I was just keeping my fingers crossed to have a good session here. And yeah, okay, let's get started then. I would be speaking about decoding StyleX, which is Meta's cutting edge styling systems. I would like to get started with a short introduction about myself. My name is Supriya Minnasandram. I work at Cisco as a software engineer. And yeah, as mentioned, I like to share my learnings in the form of technical blogs. It kind of gives me a way to also keep in touch with the latest changes in the tech. It keeps me accountable for it. And currently, I'm working with Momentum Design, which is the design system here at Cisco. We're building a unified platform for all our collaboration product suite to have a consistent look. It is open source, so I would encourage all of you to have a look at that. And yes, I'm one of the speakers today for React India. I would like to take this moment and thank the organizers team for providing me an opportunity to share my learnings today across with you guys here. Okay, let's, I do have a constant handle across my social media. So you can reach out to me in any place. @Supman is my handle. And now let's get started with the introduction to StyleX. It is Meta's latest scaling style library that they're majorly using in all across their platforms now. That includes Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and even the latest Thread application. It's simple to use, easy, and modern CSS-in-JS solution that is designed to enhance performance and streamline all the stylings across React applications. It does have cross-platform support with auto-type generation for both Flow and TypeScript. And while building StyleX, previous to building StyleX, the team dealt with a few challenges while looking at the already available solutions. And the major challenges that they faced were, as the project grew, the CSS often accumulated a lot of unused rules, and this bloated their style sheet to a bigger extent. And as the bundle size increased, there were unnecessary performance bottlenecks also. So they kept all this in mind and they built StyleX in such a way that it optimizes the styles by minimizing the runtime cost, and it leads to faster renders. And of course, StyleX is framework agnostic. Although having said that, it is best suited for React today, but they also support all the frameworks that has JavaScript authoring with markup. So I've mentioned a few libraries here with which StyleX is a good fit. And lastly, it is very easy to use and maintainable. We shall see this further during our discussion. Moving along, I would want to give you a little bit of a backstory about how and why StyleX was started. It was created in 2019 when they did a revamp for the Facebook's new UI. So if you guys were a part of Facebook then, suddenly you saw a very, very different and nice look of Facebook in 2019. That is when they included StyleX within. And it was open sourced in December 2023. Prior to using StyleX, a single page of Facebook used to load almost approximately around 15 to 45 MB of styles. And that drastically reduced after including StyleX to around 200 to 300 KB in itself. And this was a single CSS bundle. StyleX was created to solve a problem at scale. What I mean by it is when a lot of developers are working with a large application, some of them tend to break the rules by maybe adding complex selectors or global styles. And this results in specificity wars. For example, the styles were getting resolved in such a way based on how the user was navigating, and whatever styles was loaded last, that was taking the highest specificity. To resolve this issue and have a consistent way of behavior, the team of StyleX decided to have atomic styles from day one. They knew the overheads of what they're taking by creating many classes per component rather than the other way around. So now let's jump into the key benefits of within the StyleX library. Top one being the atomic styles. StyleX breaks down the styles in such a way that only the necessary styles are applied and the rest are ignored. So this leads to a faster rendering and less runtime. They also avoid duplication of styles such that across the components, they reduce the conflicts and minimize the overall CSS size as well. With respect to the resolving specificity war, there's a simple yet powerful line provided by the meta team, which is the last style applied wins. No matter what happens, whatever you applied the last, that is the one which gets reflected. So this is a very simple key that you can place it in your mind while working with StyleX. And yes, it is optimized for React. What I mean by it is StyleX is integrated directly into the React's rendering pipeline, which helps us with improved speed and efficiency during the development and production of the application. StyleX is authored using Flow, which is again created by Meta. And they also support by generating auto-typing for TypeScript. So they have a strong type-safe API styles and themes. It is flexible for conditional styles. We can easily apply conditioning styles based on the props and states. And this offers a flexible way of handling our styles without needing to add any complex CSS overrides. And also with respect to scoping, StyleX automatically scopes your components at the component level. So this ensures that your global CSS conflicts are reduced and everything is customizable at a component level. Unlike other CSS-in-JS solutions, StyleX performs the style resolution ahead of time. So this is also one of the ways they optimize by reducing the runtime overhead and increasing the overall app performance. They do have better maintainability with respect to tightly integrated components, so it becomes easier to maintain and refactor code over time. And since it's already battle tested and used in the production level at Meta's large scale React applications, it definitely speaks about its robustness and scalability. So having discussed all these, now we can let's get started and understand how do we work with StyleX? How do we include it within our code base? Since here we are at React India, I would be making use of the React example for this, React code example for this. So simply put, let's create a app component, app.jsx, and include a button component over here. And this is how our button component would look. Very straightforward. We have an HTML button tag that includes text as its children, which is being passed as props. And yeah, this is your straightforward output. No stylings applied until now. So let's add on StyleX on top of this. We import it using the StyleX.js, and this is how we would create the styles using StyleX. So there's an object where we call StyleX.create and pass in the different values that we want and how do we want to generate styles. So you see base, which is an object here. You can treat them as classes, or ideally StyleX mention it to be known as namespaces. So base is a namespace, which is containing a background of black, a text color of white, and a font size of 18. And this is stored within our variable called styles. And how do we include it within our component? We just use the spread operator. So stylex.props is spread across, and this namespace is passed through. So in this manner, we just get the styles applied. That's simple to use, and it is at the component level. So right now, I would want you to observe the background color here being mentioned as black as a string. So let's say I want to tweak this button where I want to add a color on my hovering. So all I need to do from here is just convert my background color from a string into an object. So here I would say the default value is black, whereas on hover, I would want to change it to blue. And voila, that's how it would work. So this is very simple in terms of adding pseudo clauses and playing around with your styles. Moving ahead, one thing which StyleX does differently when compared to the already existing solutions across is with respect to the media queries. So here in StyleX, we would define the media queries specific to a property. So in this example, what I'm going to do is add another property to the same namespace, and this is width. So by default, I'm defining a width of 100 pixels for my button. But if for the screen size is lesser than 476 pixels, which is generally our mobile screens, I would want it to take the whole 100% width. And that is how we would deal with the media queries. Whereas we wouldn't have a separate column across to define all the media queries and mention all the styles there. This could have been treated as a pro and a con depending on your use cases. Okay, now we have done the basics of understanding StyleX. Let's take it a bit further and understand what more can be done in StyleX. Talking about conditional stylings, I know I have gone through this and I know for sure a few more developers would have done it. So when you're dealing with a large code base and you have to make a change to your stylings, you try to make a change into the CSS file, go and look at the web page, do an inspect element, and you see that the styles are not getting applied. There are a few more specificities which are added above. So what do we do as developers? We go in our code base, add an exclamation, important, right? Been there, done that. So how do we fix this using StyleX? Let's see with this example. So in the same button.jsx, along with my base namespace, I'm adding a few more namespaces. One is highlighted, the other one is danger, and the other one is primary. And within my component, I would extend to include a few more props. One is highlighted and a variant. So within the styles.props, comma separated, I'm passing these values. Observe that the is highlighted prop only when it is passed through and is true would help us apply styles.highlighted. Otherwise, it wouldn't get applied. And with respect to the variant, we are defining a variant to be either danger or primary for now. All are going to play around with the background colors. Within our app component, I would like to just include a few more button components so that we see different looks. And this is how the output is going to look like. At this point, I want you to observe one thing with respect to the danger button. So you see that the is highlighted is provided there, but then it also has the variant of danger. And from the output, we understand that the color is red. So how does this happen? As we discussed previously, the last style applied wins. So in that way, the style.variant is taking priority or precedence. Okay. Now that we've understood how do we add conditional stylings within the button component itself, furthermore, adding along to the same example would be with respect to overriding the styles from a parent to the child. So simply put, in the similar fashion, on my button component, I include another prop called style, and this style would be passed through to the stylex.props. And within my app component, I would be creating the new styles that I want to override. So I've added another background color here and called the namespace override. So at this point, I would include a new button called overridden button. Again, I'm just trying to pass all the props possible. And here I'm adding this style, which is styles.override. And you see that that button is also created. Right now, I'm showing you an example in terms of JavaScript. So JSX is being included. But if you're using TypeScript, there is also something called as StyleX styles by Meta. Using this, you can restrict on what properties of the style could be overridden from the app.js. So at this point, I can just define that only the background color can be overridden and not maybe the text color or so. So all those restrictions could be added there. So now that we've understood a lot in terms of the look and feel, the styling, etc., at this point, I would also want to show you how does it work in the background? So we've talked about atomic styles, right? So extending the same example, let me add a margin of 1 rem to my main container. The main container holds all the buttons here. And I shall add that 1 rem of margin maybe to the highlighted as well as the primary namespaces. So we have added this margin to 2 different files and which are applying to 2 different components altogether. But when we go into the dev tools and inspect the element, we see that there is a class generated, which is for margin 1 rem, and it is being applied for my overall main container. And now we observe that for the highlighted button as well, the same class is being applied. And similarly for the primary button too, the same class is applied. So with this, we understand that creating atomic style CSS within Meta's StyleX helps us reduce the bundle size drastically. So after a given point, there's not a requirement to create new style classes. All it has to do is to reuse these class names across various components. Okay, so being able to override stylings at a granular level is definitely great. But any given design system needs to support design tokens and theming. So in StyleX, the theming APIs are directly inspired from React Context API. Let's see this example too. So I'm creating a file called tokens.stylex.js. I'm emphasizing on the file name because you can feel free to name it whatever you want, but make sure to add a suffix of stylex.stylex.js. That's when it identifies that this class is used to define variables. What does the stylex define var do? It helps us create global CSS values. So yeah, so we're trying to create a global variable here for the color palette. And the constant of dark here talks about, we're just creating a media query based on the user's system preference. It would figure out whether they're dealing with the dark mode or the light mode. And accordingly, these properties of CSS are set to the color variable. Using these values, I'm creating, the function is also processed at compile time and CSS variable names are automatically generated. This is also a functionality of how StyleX works. So let's utilize these values within our theme class. I'm creating a theme file and creating a custom theme using this color palette. So all I have to do is call stylex.createTheme, pass in this color palette, which becomes as our base color variant. And on top of this, we apply our custom theme, which is the my custom theme named here. And I'm trying to tweak around with, again, the background colors and the foreground colors, mainly to do with blue shades here. And importing this or adding the theme is as simple as adding any other styles. So within my component, all I do is add it like any other style, just adding the theme here. And this is going to be my container. I'm just adding a few more text for us to observe, and the button component remains the same. So it would simply look at this in the light mode, and this is how it would look in the dark mode. So our way of theming and then playing around with color tokens becomes a click of a button, very easy in terms of dealing with StyleX. So now that we have dealt a lot of understanding with respect to StyleX, at this point, I would also talk about a little around their comparison with Tailwind. Why have I chosen Tailwind? Because it has been a very easy way to use across in all the other projects. So Tailwind has been popularized by their utility-driven classes. And this is a very good comparison with respect to StyleX, who's trying to provide a similar approach of adding multiple classes to your particular component. So dividing into multiple sections here in this comparison, with respect to the styling paradigm and output, of course, StyleX uses their atomic styles, which reduces the bundle size. And with respect to Tailwind, it starts with the utility-driven approach by generating utility classes. This in general is also a good practice, but sometimes it could lead to larger bundles until they're purged in size. With respect to the flexibility, in StyleX, we saw that the last style applied wins. So it's clear cut there and there's no confusion with respect to that. Although in Tailwind, we see a similar fashion, we can encounter certain situations where, for example, let's say I have applied a text red 500 and text blue 500 to the same component. So the class names, and I'm defining these two class names into the same component. It is up to Tailwind to encapsulate and generate the CSS file in the background, and we as a developer do not have access to this styling sheet. So what happens is, at the moment, because blue is defined later, the text is colored in blue. But at this point, if I just swap these two strings, these two class names, and put the blue first and then the red, there is no effect that gets changed within the component. It still remains blue because the generated file has it in that order. So in that case, I think StyleX takes an edge over here. With respect to type safety, we discussed that StyleX is built using Flow. Flow is again created by the Meta team in itself, and they also generate TypeScript types with the same. It is said that Flow is better at type correctiveness and type safety when compared to TypeScript. And with respect to Tailwind, they don't have a native support as such. And yeah, that is being that. In terms of performance, StyleX just compiles the styles into static CSS bundle at build time itself, and this helps us at runtime in a better performance. Tailwind also does a similar way, but it just uses a different compiler. It uses the just-in-time engine to help us get the styles output in an efficient manner. The StyleX kind of is highly maintainable with clear and readable styles, whereas in Tailwind, because they're all utility classes that we add to different class names, sometimes a lot of classes could clutter the look and readability of a component. Talking about use case, StyleX is best suited for large-scale applications where you prioritize performance and scalability. Whereas in Tailwind, it is ideal for rapid prototyping of projects that is focused on consistent styling. In terms of design system, StyleX is strongly built for scalable design systems, and Tailwind still needs an extending approach for custom design systems. Lastly, in terms of conditional stylings that we saw in the example, StyleX also talks about conditional stylings a lot because that is one of their USPs, how they have decided to reduce the calculation time while merging classes. So StyleX uses dynamic merging of classes and conditional stylings. Whereas with respect to Tailwind, we need to make use of these utility functions such as CLSX or class name merge, or even to that matter, because they're just string values, you can play around with template literal strings and do them conditionally. Okay, so that was great. Now that we have come to the end of talk, I would thank you all for listening to me. And I would like to take a moment, and I would highly appreciate if you could scan this QR code and fill up a simple form. At the end of it, you would get the access to the code base, the repository that we've dealt with. And yeah, doing this would be helpful to me. So I would highly encourage people to fill up this form. Yeah, thank you so much.